Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Johnson, and I'm reading an excerpt from my book. I know where I've been, I'm just not sure where I'm going. Religion or relationship? Which is it? I was sitting at my desk when one of the students at the school of which I work sat down across from me. Not an unusual event until she spoke and asked, "So what religion are you, Dr. Johnson?" I looked at her and said, "Well, now, what makes you ask that question?" The girl went on to explain that her mother and she had a conversation that night about how religion affects a person's character and whether or not her family should attend church once more. I listened intently as she explained that the conversations got into deep thought, among the subjects being the importance of sacrament and confession and personal sacrifice to become more holy. Finally, I interrupted her train of thought. "Well, I don't have a religion," I said. "I have faith in a personal God who honestly loves and cares for and actually works with me in my life. Religion is a part of our spiritual heritage, a way that man has formed his theology of God and then communicated it to others so that the Creator becomes closer to our hearts and lives. Yet in many ways, that's the confinement of religion, how we see God through a bunch of rules. Religion is man's way of seeking God, or trying to understand Him, and in some cases, confine our holier activities to pleasing Him. My faith in God is not defined by religion, but by a relationship. If God is indeed the Creator, whatever God might be, it is not we, the creation, that needs to seek God, but instead have been made with a purpose and a relationship to that purpose that is far more important to the Creator than the creation. Even if we depend on the Creator for life, our life is still found fulfilled by meeting its own purpose, which is to allow relationship with the Creator. A car depends on the manufacturer to make or create it for its existence, but that car could exist, at least in theory, in a field its entire life and simply eventually rust out, never having met its intended purpose. But it's hard not to conclude that the car is better appreciated, lives a better life, and affects a lot of surrounding existence to the better when it's driven. All of creation is like that. Many of us, no doubt, rust our lives in the field, never understanding our purpose, and that's the reason for religion. As man seeks to make his existence better, more meaningful, he seeks God. We've often clarified our existence through our religious rules and experience. This may indeed get us a closer understanding of our Creator and help us to feel a bit more holy, but it's not a relationship. Only a fool would say there is no God, and the evidence of God as Creator is abundant, from the sacred heart beating in each individual to the very uniqueness of their own DNA. And of course, God is seen through His creation, which becomes personal when we examine the miracle of our own human body. But God, though recognized in existence, remains a mystery, and that's why there are so many religions. Man attempts to define this mystery like a car attempting to identify its driver. Each religion quantifies the recognized evidence and then interprets its activities through its rules, hoping these rules may get them to God. And who is to say that sometimes these rules don't meet their objective? But religion does not often become a relationship. Our heart, our emotions, that part of us so difficult to quantify, but that we know exists, is actually the most real part of us, more tangible than our physical body. For it is the emotions and unseen feelings that really make us what we are. And it is logical to conclude that the reality of God is found in the same unseen part, the heart and divine emotion. It is those emotions that teach us about God far more than our religion. God must laugh, and I guess He must cry. He must feel, and He must be lonely. Because we have those emotions, and they've come from somewhere. He created us like Him so that we could love each other. He has created so much that we are like Him, we are unable to comprehend, like the movement of the lizard or the ant city below us, or the creatures of the sea that we have never seen, and the uniqueness of our spirit in the purpose of our existence. Inborn within us are already spiritual principles that give us a personal relationship with God, even if throughout our life we never understand Him. Like truth being right and justice is for everyone and life is sacred. No one really taught us these things. These are things we just know, inbred to help us understand our purpose. And in retrospect, when we examine already those emotions, those principles, those points of logic that bring us to truth, we come to understand God is already speaking to us, guiding us, for not only our sake, but for His. He wants a relationship with us. And if part of us hungers so strongly to have a relationship with other human beings, then it only comes to its own conclusion that God seeks a special relationship with each of us. And since all of us are so unique, He seeks that relationship from each of us personally. This is not religion, where man seeks to define God. This is a relationship, where instead it is God who seeks to know us. I said to the young lady sitting across from me at my desk, I have a personal relationship with a God whom I believe created me and loves me and wants to know me as much or more than I want to know Him. She looked at me puzzled, trying to take it all in, and asked, Did you get your faith from church? Yes, I answered. When I was 15, I went to an Awana meeting, similar to the Boy Scouts, only sponsored by a church, where I played games and then joined in a meeting with refreshments. While we were having the refreshments, our group leader talked to us about the love of Christ and how God through Christ has loved us. Most of it made sense to me, but when he said God loves you and all you have to do is ask Jesus into your heart, He'll come in personally, now that's about all I remember he said, although he talked a bit longer. Sitting there by myself, I said, all right, God, if you really can hear me and you really do care, come into my heart. At that point I paused, thinking maybe the girl had fallen asleep. But she looked up and said, so what happened? Well, I'm not sure, I said. All I know is from that moment on, I've never been the same. And Christ has been in my life. I've spent much of my life studying other religions, looking at alternative philosophies, and questioning the faith. And all I can tell you is my experience with Christ has made me a different person and been the guiding force of my life. Sounds religious, she said. Spiritual, maybe, I said. Religion, if you mean that any talk of God must be, but a relationship with anyone is never just one thing. You aren't just social to your friends, because inherent in your relationship with them is physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental exercises. A relationship with God is the same way, involving all of your senses. You can't get everything simply by going to church, although church certainly can't hurt you. The experience of my faith tells me that God really loves me. He cares about my feelings. He's anxious to communicate with me and wants to have a relationship with me. And Christ has been the mediator, which has brought me to God, and we grow in our relationship together. Does he answer all my questions or meet all my prayer demands? No. As should not anyone that I respect to be in a relationship with me. They have their worlds, I have mine, and they only come closer together as I learn to love them more. It all has to do with the nurturing of our relationship. If I make too many egotistical demands or insist that God meet my desires, then he gives up some of his character, or we're faced to separate. The more demanding either one of us gets, the more problems we encounter with each other. And our faith is in each other can diminish or increase depending on the amount of personal tolerance we offer. At this point, the young lady interrupted me again. So how do you get to know God if you don't listen to the church? Well, wait a minute, I said. I didn't say you wouldn't learn anything in a church. Church is one way to learn about God. You must do it discriminatory, knowing that men make mistakes. I did it many ways. I studied other religions. I understand that no one has all the truth. and that you can learn from even the most ungodly of men. I study the Bible intimately in ways others have ignored, including historically, scientifically, errors that others would point out, and so forth. Through that study, I learned to have great faith in the Bible, and that's my marker, our guideline, both into the character of God and his desires for my behavior. Most of all, it teaches me that no matter what I do, he loves me. And then I learned that one of the great claims of the Bible was that God would answer prayers, so I've learned to put him to the daily test. Anything that I wanted, I would pray about, speaking to God as I speak to anyone who cared for me and would want to know how I feel. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen God answer prayer, and so my faith is strong in our personal relationship. Through Jesus Christ, God has become my faithful friend and companion. So she said to me, "Are you a better person because of you accepted Christ?" Sounded like a trick question to me. "Do you mean, am I better than you?" "No. I make the same mistakes. I live in a world of selfishness and greed. I struggle to try to be a good Christian, but I can tell you that I'm not alone in the struggle. I have a God who loves me and struggles with me regularly and tries to help me." "You honestly believe that God cares about me?" she asked. "I can tell you this. If I loved God all my life and you decided not to know him and fulfill your purpose, I'd never be able to love him enough to heal his hurt that he had because he couldn't love you. You would be absent to him. But you don't speak of any rules." "There are no rules in my faith. My faith in God is based on our relationship." "I think I'd like to accept Christ in my heart," she said. I paused for a moment. "I hope you do. You'll experience all the love that he's given me." "But I'm not sure I understand it all." "You never will," I said. "I don't understand it. If a relationship is worth pursuing, it is always a bigger understanding than our own. You don't want to understand a relationship. You want to experience the fullness of it. No one understands love." I could tell as she went to the door and started to walk down the hall, she was stepping into a new relationship, one that I think would change her life. But then she stopped, turned around, came back to my office. "What is my purpose?" "Your purpose," I said, "is to love God and build a meaningful relationship with him. He lives to love you and build that relationship as well. Can I ask you one final question?" I chuckled, of course. "Although I can't promise I have the answer. What is God like?" I thought for a minute. "Well, God is much more than we know. But as you come in contact with him through Christ and then build your relationship, you'll get to know him. He's kind, he's a great counselor, he's your friend." "Well, then God is like you, Dr. Johnson." We both laughed and she left. In silence, I thought how true that statement was, that God is like us, kind, a great counselor, and indeed our friend. But I also couldn't forget that I, who considered himself a pretty good counselor, was so unlike God.